China launches punishment war games around Taiwan. Ireland, Spain, and Norway say they will recognize a Palestinian state. Wind causes stage collapse at Mexico election rally. Kim Jong-un's portrait is displayed in North Korea. FBI to investigate doping by Chinese swimmers. Scientists found where the sun's magnetic field originates.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Friday, May 24th, and here are your top stories. A furious China launched punishment drills around Taiwan on Thursday in what is said was a response to separatist acts, sending up heavily armed warplanes and staging mock attacks, as state media denounced newly inaugurated President Lai Ching-te. The exercises in the Taiwan Strait and around groups of Taiwan-controlled islands that sit next to the Chinese coast come just 3 days after Lai took office, a man Beijing detests as a separatist. China, which views democratically governed Taiwan as its own territory, has denounced Lai's inauguration speech on Monday, in which he called on China to stop its threats and said the two sides of the strait were not subordinate to each other.
Lai has repeatedly offered talks with China but been rebuffed. He says only Taiwan's people can decide their future and rejects Beijing's sovereignty claims. The Eastern Theater Command of the Chinese People's Liberation Army, PLA, said it had started joint military drills involving the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Rocket Force in areas around Taiwan at 7:45 a.m., 2345 GMT. The drills are being conducted in the Taiwan Strait, the north, south, and east of Taiwan, as well as areas around the Taiwan-controlled islands of Kinmen, Matsu, Wuxu, and Dongyan, the command said in a statement. The first time China's exercises have included areas around these islands. China's military has over the past 4 years carried out almost daily activities near Taiwan. China last staged large-scale war games near Taiwan in 2023 and 2022.
Ireland, Spain, and Norway have announced plans to formally recognize a Palestinian state next week, in a move that is likely to bolster the global Palestinian cause but further strain relations between Europe and Israel. The three European nations say their landmark decision is the best way to achieve lasting peace in the Middle East, but it sparked swift condemnation from Israel, as its foreign minister ordered the immediate recall of its ambassadors from those countries. Most of the world already recognizes Palestinian statehood. More than 140 out of 193 member states of the United Nations have made their recognition official, but only some nations in the 27-member European Union are among them.
Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris told a Wednesday news conference in Dublin, "Today, Ireland, Norway, and Spain are announcing that we recognize the state of Palestine. Each of us will now undertake whatever national steps are necessary to give effect to that decision. The recognition will come into force in all three countries on May 28, Irish Foreign Minister Michael Martin said. Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre said that a Palestinian state was a prerequisite for achieving peace in the Middle East. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez sought to characterize the decision as one that was not anti-Israel. This recognition is not against the people of Israel and certainly not against the Jewish people, he said. It's not in favor of Hamas. It's in favor of coexistence. The announcement was welcomed by Palestinian officials.
9 people were killed and a presidential candidate was briefly taken to hospital after a stage collapse under heavy winds at a campaign rally in Mexico on Wednesday. Candidate Jorge Alvarez Menez said he was not injured in the incident, which happened during his campaign event in the northeastern city of San Pedro Garza. The governor of Mexico's Nuevo Leon state said at least 54 people were injured and rescue operations were ongoing to save some of the people trapped under the collapsed stage.
Videos shared on social media showed the moment a strong gust caused the stage to collapse. Alvarez Menez and his team can be seen running for cover as the structure, which included a large video screen, falls onto the stage and part of the audience area. Mexico's meteorological service had forecast powerful winds across the region, warning of gusts of up to 70 kilometers per hour beginning Wednesday afternoon. Alvarez Menez later said he was suspending all campaign activities after the collapse but would remain in the state to monitor the situation and victims. Governor Garcia urged people in the area to stay indoors, warning of more strong winds, thunderstorms, and rain. Mexico heads toward its largest election in history on June 2nd, which has been marred by spiking political violence and assassinations.
Two's company, but three's a dynasty. At least it is now in North Korea. The country has displayed the portrait of its leader, Kim Jong-un, next to those of his father and grandfather, a possibly significant step in elevating his status alongside his predecessors. For the first time, photos released by Pyongyang state news agency KCNA on Wednesday showed the dictator's portrait hung next to those of his father, Kim Jong-il, and grandfather, Kim Il-sung. Large portraits were seen on the wall of a building, and smaller versions hung in a classroom as Kim spoke with officials at the recent inauguration of a school for training new party cadets.
When Kim last visited the school, on Thursday, his portrait was not shown on the wall in the photos released at the time. It is unknown if Kim's portrait has also been hung alongside the others in more places across the country. Portraits of the country's leaders are ubiquitous in the totalitarian state, featured everywhere from domestic households to the subway to offices, as a core feature of the cult of personality that has underpinned the family's decades-long rule. Analysts said this appeared to be the first time North Korea had displayed images of Kim next to his forebears, who enjoy the status of demigods in the reclusive, nuclear-armed state. Kim has been building up his own personality cult for a while, but he's now doing it at a level that had been reserved for his grandfather, who founded the nation, and his father.
The House Select Committee on China has asked the Justice Department and the FBI to open a formal investigation into reports that nearly 24 Chinese swimmers who had tested positive for a banned heart medication before the last Summer Olympics were allowed to compete after they were cleared by officials. In a letter Tuesday, the House committee implored federal authorities to use their jurisdiction under the Rochenkov Anti-Doping Act, a law that allows U.S. prosecutors to clamp down on doping at international sporting events that feature Americans as athletes, even if the alleged illegal activity happened in a foreign country.
The letter cites a recent New York Times investigation concerning 23 Chinese swimmers who had tested positive for trimetazidine, a heart medication banned by doping regulators, months before the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. The Times reported that the swimmers were allowed to compete after Chinese officials authorized them and the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, declined to intervene. Chinese government officials and WADA have forcefully pushed back on the allegations. In a news briefing in Beijing on April 22, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin blasted the false information and reporting. He said China's anti-doping agency concluded in 2021 that the swimmers could compete after finding they had ingested the substance unwittingly from tainted food. He insisted the Chinese government has a zero-tolerance attitude toward doping.
The sun has a powerful magnetic field that creates sunspots on the star's surface and unleashes solar storms such as the one that bathed much of the planet in beautiful auroras this month. But exactly how that magnetic field is generated inside the sun is a puzzle that has vexed astronomers for centuries, going back to the time of Italian astronomer Galileo, who made the first observations of sunspots in the early 1600s, and notice how they varied over time. Researchers behind an interdisciplinary study have put forth a new theory in a report published Wednesday in the journal Nature.
In contrast to previous research that assumed the sun's magnetic field originates from deep within the celestial body, they suspect that the source is much closer to the surface. The model developed by the team could help scientists better understand the 11-year solar cycle and improve the forecasting of space weather, which can disrupt GPS and communication satellites as well as dazzle night skywatchers with auroras. Sunspots help scientists track the sun's activity. They are the origin point for the explosive flares and ejection events that release light, solar material, and energy into space. The recent solar storm is evidence of the sun approaching solar maximum, the point in its 11-year cycle when there is the highest number of sunspots.
The answer for yesterday is B, bound. You are bound to be nervous the first time. Did you answer correctly? Now let's delve into the news of China launches punishment war games around Taiwan. Number 1. Denounce. 谴责,指责,斥责. The project was denounced as a scandalous waste of public money. Number 2. Mock. 模仿的,模拟的. It's tragic, swoons Jeffrey in mock horror. Number 3. Subordinate. 隶属的,从属的,下级的. In many societies, women are subordinate to men. Next, we have a multiple choice question for everyone to practice. Which answer would you choose? You can write your answer in the comment section. The correct answer will be announced next week. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune in to Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I will see you next time.